Hello and welcome to the little apartment on the prairie. Today I'm going to make dog treats. Oh, here's Sassy. Say hello, little kitty. You eat dog treats, don't you? She eats anything. Like anything that doesn't eat her first, literally. Like she eats tomatoes and watermelon and things cats do not like. She's looking at the ceiling fan, which is not spinning, but she likes it when it does spin, so she's keeping an eye on it. Alright, so I'm making dog treats. What I'm actually making is gingerbread man shaped dog cookies for Christmas, because that's fun, right? So I asked some of my friends if anybody wanted some, and way more people than I thought said yes, they did want some. So I have to make a lot of them. So I'm going to show you how to make them. And the first thing you do is you got to mix up the cookie dough, or the dog treat dough. I'm calling it cookie dough because I'm calling these dog cookies, but you know, they're just dog treats. And you gotta, ouch! You gotta get down if you're gonna bite me. I think I touched her belly and she said that was enough. Okay, so you gotta mix up the dough and then you have to refrigerate it for I think 30 minutes or maybe it's 60 minutes. I have to check my recipe and make sure. But anyway, you can refrigerate it longer, so I'm gonna mix it up this afternoon. I might roll out some cookies this afternoon, or I might wait and roll them out tomorrow morning. That's the nice thing about it. You can mix the dough up one day and then make your dog treats or dog cookies the following day if you want. And hi, Isaac. Yeah, here comes Isaac for a treat. And since I have to make a whole bunch of dog treats, I'm doing like a double batch, but I'll put the recipe for just a regular size batch down in the comments, or down in the description, I mean, because you might want to make a double batch, but probably not unless you need to make like 15 dozen dog cookies like I do, for real. Okay, so what you're gonna need is whole wheat flour, because these are healthy dog treats. You need peanut butter, and you need to check the ingredients to make sure it's dog safe. The best ingredients would just be peanuts, but this also has sugar. It's got 2% or less of partially hydrogenated oils, molasses, honey, dextrose, and salt. What you want to check for is to make absolutely sure that you are not using peanut butter that has xylitol in it. Xylitol is an artificial sweetener, which is very bad for dogs. So you need to make sure there's no xylitol. Make sure you've got dog-safe peanut butter. Okay, and these are going to be, it's going to be a peanut butter applesauce cookie. So I have applesauce and I have homemade applesauce. Of course, you don't need homemade applesauce, but just plain unsweetened applesauce. I made this last year, September 2019, canned it. It's still perfectly good. I've got a few jars left. I did not make applesauce this fall because the orchard where I buy apples, or where I bought apples the last couple years that I've been in Nebraska, was not open because of the coronavirus. You need you'll need a quarter cup of water to make a single batch. Anyway, you'll need warm water. And I'm going to add a little bit of ground cinnamon. And yes, this is like the biggest thing of ground cinnamon ever. If you bake a lot, it is so much cheaper and more convenient to buy things like cinnamon in a big tub like this than in an itty bitty thing like this. But you also need ground ginger for the recipe I'm making. Now you can make these cookies without the ginger and cinnamon. And you could also substitute mashed up banana, or pumpkin, or sweet potato, or something else for the applesauce. If you're substituting something that's less sweet, like bananas are very sweet, applesauce is sweet. If you're substituting something like pumpkin that's not very sweet, you might want to add a little touch of honey to your recipe. Unless you're using peanut butter that has sugar in it, and then you don't need to add honey or more of any other sweetener, because that is going to be sweet enough. So let's see, as usual, you have to ignore the mess that is my kitchen. What, you're back already? He says, yes, it doesn't take me long at all. And here Sassy's back too. Yeah, the good thing about making dog cookies instead of people cookies is the dog's not picky about if you get cat hair in your cookies. When you're making people cookies, they would prefer that you keep the dog hair out and the cat hair out. So I'm going to put a cup of peanut butter in this. Again, the recipe to just make a single batch will be in the description. I've also made dog treats with sunflower butter. I don't know if I've ever used, I might have used some other nut butter, I don't remember. Just whenever you're making stuff for dogs, you need to check and make sure that what you're making, you know, that the ingredients are safe for dogs. So if you don't know if, you know, almonds are safe for dogs, or if you're not sure if whatever, cranberries are safe for dogs, or whatever it is, make sure you check. You can probably look it up online, but make sure you're checking. I'm making a mess here. Make sure you're checking a reputable source, or better yet, check with your vet. A lot of veterinarians now have Facebook pages, and it's easy to shoot them a message on Facebook and ask a question like, can my dog have ginger? When I decided I wanted to make gingerbread man cookies and I wanted to actually put ginger in it, I had to check and make sure that ginger was okay for dogs. And actually, not only is it okay for dogs, it's pretty good for them. If they have an upset stomach or acid reflux, ginger might help. I'm not saying it's like medicinal, but you know, it's something that might be, I got peanut butter on my table here, that might be helpful to them. And cinnamon is good for like blood sugar and blood pressure and stuff, I think, in humans. Or it's, you know, it might be, it's supposed to be. Some people say it is. However that goes. And so it would have the same kind of beneficial effects in dogs it would have in humans. So anyway, it will not hurt them, and it might even be good for them. All right, so you put peanut butter in your bowl and wipe the peanut butter off the table so you don't stick your elbow in it. And then you need warm water. It doesn't have to be hot, but it's good for it to be warm. It kind of helps it thin out the peanut butter, which is then going to make the peanut butter easier to mix with other ingredients. All right. So I'm going to put that in a bowl and stir it a little bit, and you only need like the big giant mixing bowl if you're making a big double batch like me. A friend got me these mixing bowls. I don't think it was last Christmas. I think it was the year before that. And there's a set of 3 of them, and they're plastic. And I'm kind of not that big a fan of plastic bowls. Like I had some ceramic mixing bowls that I really liked until I broke one. I still have one left, but I broke the biggest one. And I don't even know what happened to the smallest one, so I have the middle-sized one left. However, these are lovely because they're light, and when they fall out of my cabinet and land on the floor, they don't break. And they have the little end that's like a pitcher, like a little spout, and that makes it great when you're pouring cake batter into cake pans and stuff. So they turned out to be really neat pans. I really like them. All right, so you mix that together so you have kind of runny peanut butter. Then you're going to put your applesauce in. I need a thing to open that. I cannot get that with my fingers. That's going to hurt my fingernail. If you're wondering how to open cans, if you do like canning stuff at home, it's one of these like bottle opener things. Work like magic. You just put it on the edge and it pops right up. Like that. Homemade applesauce from last year. Where's my spoon? I got a big spoon somewhere. Okay. And I need 1.5 cups of this, which is going to be most of this jar. There's a cup. If you're making the normal size batch instead of a double batch, you would just need 3/4 cup. All right, there's 1 cup. I'm gonna drop this on the floor. I know I am. Do you hear that cat fight? Man, half the time they sound like they hate each other and want to kill each other, but I swear, twice recently I've walked into the living room unexpectedly and found Whiskers and Isaac and Sassy cuddled up on the couch like they love each other, and I've seen Whiskers grooming Sassy. All right. You're back for more? You can have one more. Good grief. It's like, yeah, Mom, I need a lot. I can eat a lot of treats, Mommy. Yeah? Okay, thank you. He wags his tail. All right, so then you mix in your applesauce and your peanut butter, which should mix together easily because you had warm, runny peanut butter now. All right. So I'm going to add my spices first and then the flour because it's going to be easier to stir them in, I think, this way. So I'm going to use a 1/4 teaspoon of each spice. You would just use 1/8 of a teaspoon. I do not want to make this, I don't want the flavor to be really strong because I think dogs are kind of like kids. They don't necessarily want really strong flavors unless it tastes like meat, and then it can be as strong as you want to make it, I assume. So this dog treat recipe is pretty versatile. You can make it with chicken broth or beef broth instead of water. I use low sodium broth when I do that. This ginger does not want to come out of here. Come on, a little bit more. All right. And so you can use broth instead of water, and you can use a pureed vegetable instead of fruit and make it more of like a savory treat than a sweet treat, I guess. These treats are perfectly people safe, by the way. I mean, you see these ingredients. These are all perfectly fine ingredients for humans. I mean, it's like organic homemade applesauce. Whole wheat flour. You can eat these treats right along with your dog if you want. You're probably going to think they're a little not quite sweet enough to be a human cookie, but here's what we've got so far. It's runny and yeah. And I think I've made them like savory with vegetables instead of fruit. And I think then they taste like they need salt. But, you know, you can snack on them yourself. They're perfectly people safe. So I'm going to use 3½ cups of whole wheat flour. You would use 1 3/4 cup to make the normal size batch. Oh, let's see. I need a little bit more. It's hard to see the lines on this thing. I don't know. I had a big glass measuring cup that like held 2 cups that I liked really well. And Sassafras knocked it off the counter and broke it. Because of course she did. Bring it here, Isaac. You gotta bring it to me. You gotta bring it here, bud. So when you start stirring this up, it's gonna get thick and kind of hard to stir. That's normal. It's supposed to do that. Here. Last one, for real. You don't like this treat? Oh, you smell peanut butter and stuff. It's like, Mom, there's peanut butters up there. I'm going to put a little bit of peanut butter on his Kong. Just a little bit. You like that? Yeah, you like that. All right, so this is going to be kind of hard to stir because it's going to get really thick. It's supposed to do that. Stir it all up. And then what you're going to do is stick it in the refrigerator. You can just cover this bowl with plastic wrap if you want. I'm probably going to stick it in a Ziploc bag because I might not finish it until tomorrow, and that keeps it from drying out. I make sure if it's in a Ziploc bag, it's sealed up really good. So it's going to seem a little crumbly. You can stick your hands in there and kind of knead it if you want. At some point you might have to. But that's it, and then you're going to put it in the refrigerator. Leave it for at least 30 minutes. And then whenever I come back, either later today or tomorrow to roll out the cookies, I'll show you what they look like. Alright, it is the next morning. My dog cookie dough has been chilling in the fridge overnight in a Ziploc bag, which, like I said, you only need to chill it for about half an hour, but you can leave it in overnight if you want. That works fine. Here comes Isaac. I swear, every time he hears me talking, and this is my fault, I basically trained him that so he doesn't bug me when I'm filming, I will give him a treat, or, 10 treats, and he doesn't forget it either. Alright, so you need a rolling pin, or I used to make these when I didn't have a rolling pin, and I just put the dough on a cookie sheet and smushed it flat with my hands, but it works better with a rolling pin, especially if you're gonna make cutouts with a cookie cutter. This is my little gingerbread man cookie cutter. Got it at the dollar store last holiday season. This is my rolling pin. I got this at an antique store. I love it. I just love old things that are usable. This was made out of one solid piece of wood. I think it was made in the 1930s. So it's a 90-year-old rolling pin, and I love it. Anyway, so you want to put a little bit of flour down on the surface where you're going to roll out the dough. You probably already know this, but if you don't, you want to put a little flour down and put a little flour on your rolling pin so your dough doesn't stick. You can put a little flour on your hands too. And you're going to roll these out, roll them, I don't know to what thickness, roll them out till they're pretty thin. Like any other, like sugar cookie or, any cutout cookie that you're going to make. This requires me to stand up. You wouldn't think rolling out dough would require a lot of effort, but you got to put a little weight into it, really. And you're going to bake these cookies, these dog treats, in a 300-degree oven for half an hour, but then you're going to turn the oven off and leave the dog treats in the oven for another hour, and it'll finish baking while the oven cools down. Make sure you remember to take them out of the oven before you go to bake something else. Ask me why I say that. Because otherwise, you go to bake bread later and you're preheating the oven and you start to smell something burning. So I don't know what thickness you want these to be rolled out to, 1/8 of an inch maybe. Pretty thin. Now, if you don't want, of course you don't have to have a gingerbread man cookie cutter. You can use any kind of cookie cutter you want. And you don't have to use a cookie cutter. Your dog does not care what shape their treats are, I promise. I use leftover little bits of dough to make treats for Isaac if I'm making these for a friend, like I am now, for friends. So I'll use the leftover little bits to make treats for Isaac, because dogs don't care what their treats look like. It's the people that like the cute little shapes. So if you don't want to cut out cookies, the easy way to do this is just to take a butter knife and score the dough into strips, and then score it the other way so it looks like you've got squares traced on top of it. Bake it that way in one solid piece, and then after you bake it, it'll break apart real easily where you scored it, and you have little square dog treats, and your dog will be perfectly happy with that. But if you're giving them to somebody as a gift, people really like the cute shapes. I mean, I'm not giving Isaac a treat that's this big. You see how big this cookie cutter is? That's the size of the palm of my hand. I would break this thing into 6 pieces to give it to Isaac. When somebody gives Isaac a whole dog treat, a whole milk bone or something, he doesn't know what to do. I mean, he's just amazed that treats come in such a big size, because you see the square treats that I put in his Kong. I use that size treat because it's harder to get out. But the rest of the time, if I was just giving him a treat, if I wasn't putting this in his Kong, I'd break this into like 3 or 4 pieces. He's used to treats like the size of my my little fingernail. I wouldn't give him a treat this size. It doesn't matter. He would like swallow a treat this size, and he'd like chew it one time and swallow it. There's no need to. Dogs do not need treats this big. That's all I'm saying. But people like the treats cut into cute shapes. The dogs do not care. So like the little pieces in between the cutouts, that's what I would bake. Like those little bitty scraps that are left over, I would bake for Isaac, and those would be the treats he gets. And Sassy, because she will eat these. So I just like lightly spray a cookie sheet with baking spray. You could use parchment paper if you want. If you've got a good non-stick cookie sheet, you probably don't need to spray it, or use parchment paper. But I hate when things stick. It's kind of fun making little cutout cookies. For the first dozen or 2 dozen, when you are making a million, it becomes less fun quickly, I guess. But anyway. I'm going to smell them and see. They smell more like peanut butter. They don't really have too much of a cinnamon or a ginger smell, but whatever. They do have cinnamon and ginger in there. If you put it kind of changes the color. If you put like sweet potatoes in it or pumpkin, it's a more orangey color. This one like stuck. There we go. I think I said earlier, one time I put some raspberries in it, and I just kind of swirled it in. I didn't mix them in real well, so there was like this pinkish red swirl in the middle. It was, it was pretty looking. And I cut them out in little heart shapes so people could give their dog Valentine's Day presents. Ah, it's ripping its head off. Come on. Patch his head. Now he looks like he has hair. Alright, so you just stick them on a baking sheet. Bake them at 300 degrees for half an hour. Turn off the oven. Let them sit in the oven for an extra hour so they finish cooking. Take them out, and that's it. And Isaac says they're delicious. Dogs love them. And you can eat, so you can munch on them yourself, although you might think they're not sweet enough. Alright, so don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't yet. And let me know if you have a homemade dog treat recipe that you like. You can share it down in the comments.